Now welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Grogu, seeing where he ranks against all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, you can already head down to nominate and or vote for which character we do next. Just respond to my pinned comment below with a character name or vote with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and on to the results for Grogu, where we'll see that 44% of people gave him an A, 34% then thought he belonged in the B tier, 15% went with a C, which left 3% to give him a D, and a final 4% to give him an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, Grogu ends up with an average score of 4.11, which puts him into 20th place overall, and right behind the likes of Darth Maul and Anakin Skywalker. And speaking of Anakin, I probably will be doing a sort of redo for him. I'll be putting up a poll probably midweek, asking what you think of the character as a whole as both Vader and Anakin, which many have argued is how the character should be rated or judged. But anyway, for now, let's get back to Grogu and move on to your comments, but not before once again just quickly saying thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these videos, or any of my videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also a big thank you to everyone who supports this channel and what I try to do here over on Patreon. And now let's begin, as we always do, with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from Emil Edlund, who said, "It's hard to judge his character given that, as a baby, Grogu is in a sense more of an object than a character." Okay, so I think a big part of the reason it took so long for Grogu to finally be nominated, to finally get a poll done on him when there's no denying or arguing against his popularity, is that there really isn't much to him, that he does feel more like a plot device, if we're being honest, or the catalyst for the change in Din Djarin, but that there's not a whole lot going on with him on a personal level. Which, no, isn't automatically a bad thing or disqualifies him from being regarded as a good character. You can certainly argue the most important aspect of a character is playing their role in the bigger story, and Grogu certainly does that and does it very well. I mean, we do understand why Mando, our main character, changes because of Grogu, but we don't understand anything about Grogu himself, not anything that isn't inferred or overtly obvious, like the fact that he's seemingly happy or content to be with Mando, and he likes going on adventures, and he likes eating the occasional snack. But we have no idea who he really is or what he actually wants. We get a few teases in a way, and he does pick to go back to the Mandalorian, back to Din Djarin, but we don't even see him actually make that choice, learning any of his reasonings or motivations behind it, other than, again, what we can infer, that he just likes being with Mando. And it's also a choice that now takes him away from a character, Luke, that could actually directly communicate with him and could have offered him and us, the audience, some real character understanding. And so now, for better or worse, he goes back to a character that we've never really seen try to figure out a way to communicate with Grogu, has never really tried to talk to him beyond the most basic of things. And sure, that might now change going forward, and honestly, it needs to change going forward. But really, Mando's intent with Grogu has always been returning him to his people, because that's what someone else told him to do. That's what the Armorer told him to do. And so in turn, Grogu's one big choice in the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, at the end of Season 2 when he goes off with Luke, it doesn't seem so much as a choice he's making because that's what he wants to do, as much as it's what he thinks Mando wants him to do, because returning him to his people has been what he's trying to do all along, if all that makes sense. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Moon, who said, "I think it's a bit too early to grade Grogu." And I think I have to kind of disagree with you here. I think it's fair to start to judge him, considering he's been the driving force behind 2 whole seasons of a show, and that he's also heavily featured in an episode of the Book of Boba Fett. In fact, arguing he shouldn't be judged after all of that kind of strengthens the argument that, yeah, so far, he has been little more than a plot device. That said, we do know we have hundreds of years to go with this character yet, probably both in story and out, considering how marketable he is. So if your argument here is we've only ever seen him as a child and we don't know where they're going to take him yet and there's a heck of a lot more story to be told, then yeah, I can see your point. But in all honesty here, we've gotten a lot of them. We've gotten 2 seasons, much more than some characters on this list that people wouldn't try to make the same defense for. Okay, and moving on now, we have this comment from Ben Z, who said, I pondered my vote, then suddenly went with an A as soon as I realized just how important Grogu was to re-energizing a weary, jaded fandom. Many adults who were once done with Star Wars were intrigued, and little kids who otherwise had never been exposed to it, or just hadn't cared about Star Wars, were instantly hooked and wearing the merch. People of all ages talk about Grogu, and in turn the show, at work and school, eagerly awaiting the next episode. It takes an A to accomplish that in the negative environment the show was introduced into. Also here we have this comment from James Kingsbury, who said, Grogu has helped get my daughters interested in Star Wars. My wife, who also had no interest in Star Wars, also liked watching The Mandalorian with me in large part because of Grogu. There are times where he gets in the way of the plot, and it's kind of a waste that they spent the whole Mandalorian returning him to the Jedi just to have that undone, but he should get bonus points for attracting new fans to the franchise. There's also this one from Ross Henderson, who said, whilst he is a plot device and incredibly adorable, I gave him an A. He is the reason The Mandalorian exists and why we've gotten this amazing rebirth of Star Wars within TV. Sure, Din and company are amazing, the writers and cinematography are awesome, but it's Grogu who caught the hearts of the non-Star Wars fans and have brought Star Wars back into the light. Then also this one from Darth Malik, who said, he is the reason why a lot of casual fans got back into Star Wars after the Last Jedi controversy. Whether or not you like Grogu's character, you should at least appreciate that The Mandalorian and the franchise would not be nearly as popular with mainstream audiences if not for his inclusion in the opening of the series, and he's adorable. And though yes, I always say you're free to judge these characters however you see fit using your own criteria, whatever that may be, I do still, of course, encourage you to judge them mainly off what they are or what we see of them in story, since we're judging them as characters in a story, not their impact outside of it. But that said, these comments and others like them do bring up a good point. The Mandalorian did do some healing in the fanbase after the sequel trilogy, and Grogu was a big part of that, obviously. And for that alone, maybe he does deserve an A. Maybe you can make that argument, and certainly many people did give him an A. It was 44%. However, there are those that feel he deserves anything but an A, which brings us to this comment from Caleb, who said, surprisingly enough, he gets an F from me. Disney turned him from a pretty good character into just a prop to sell merchandising when they forced him to go back to Din Djarin rather than stay with Luke. He just isn't really a character. He doesn't talk, he doesn't have any flaws, he just exists to be cute. Then there's also this one from Darth Venomous, who said, F-. This dude is a prop who doesn't speak. He's been around for less than 3 years and was made for the sole purpose of selling toys to children because he's so adorable. I've done the calculations and his average is 4.07. He is higher than OGs like C-3PO, Galen Merrick, Cad Bane, Jango Fett, Boba Fett, Dooku, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, Padme, Mara Jade, Grievous, and Kit Fisto. The fact he is this high simply because of how cute he is just ridiculously insulting to many of the well-developed characters who have been a part of the Star Wars franchise for decades. And like I was saying before, I think one of the reasons it took so long for him to get voted on or to win that first vote to make the poll is mainly, shall we say, because people feared what the results would be. Some people feared what the results would be, that this character would be ranked higher than maybe he actually deserves to be because of how cute he is and has, you can certainly argue, has had this positive impact on the Star Wars fandom, which, again, doesn't really relate to what he is as a character in story. And then at the same time, you can kind of make this argument he has had a negative effect on the story in a way, considering his marketability and merchandising potential is more important than anything else to Disney. That if we're being realistic here and being honest, they don't care about how great of a story gets told with him. They care about how well he sells, and make no mistake, he sells very, very well. And so, though, yes, I think absolutely at some point in story, Grogu and Mando were going to reunite. I think that was the plan all along. I can't help but wonder if Filoni and Favreau really intended for them to reunite this quickly, and for it to happen in a whole other show, not even in The Mandalorian. Or if Disney said there's just too much money to be made off of him, that we can't have him sitting on the sidelines for even one season, or heck, even a few episodes of a season, in order to build a more significant and impactful reunion down the road, We couldn't let him just be for a moment. We couldn't let Mando be for just a moment. We had to get them back together because we had merchandise to sell. Anyway, then let's move on to this comment from Ista, who said, I would give him a C. Don't get me wrong, I like him just as much as the next guy, but in terms of characterization, he's uninteresting. Instead of delving into his past and exploring his possible trauma, we get what cute thing can Grogu do next. I don't think he's a bad character or anything, but for him to really make a mark as a personality instead of a plot device, we need more scenes like the Order 66 flashback, which are just too few and far between. I think it's hard to grade him as a character. He's a plot device / MacGuffin, kind of like asking what grade or rating I would give Anakin's lightsaber. I think he works for what he's intended for, to be cute and sell toys, but there's not much beyond that. We also then have this comment from It's Lucos, who said, there's not a whole lot to deconstruct about Grogu as a character. Yeah, his backstory and the mystery behind it is interesting, but he's still just a kid. In saying that, I'd still give him an A because of his dynamic with Din and how he brings out the best of what should be a ruthless bounty hunter, and just his potential going forward, 800 years of possibilities. Also here we have a comment from Frank Hughes, who said, I've seen enough of Grogu for now. I'm looking forward to seeing him a few hundred years older. And also this one from Steve, who said, character development is going to be seriously challenging in the coming seasons. I already feel like he's becoming a one-trick pony. And though again, absolutely Grogu is going to be used over and over again for years and years to come, both in the story and out, I do think they may have kind of backed themselves into a corner just a bit with him, with the whole aging / development thing. I mean, not only do a lot of people love him just as is, probably having little interest in ever seeing him grow older because of how cute he is, but then on the flip side, I think there are plenty that have not grown tired of the character per se, but grown tired of kind of the same thing over and over again with him. That the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian centered around Din Djarin trying to figure out what to do with this child, and that it looks like going forward into season 3 and beyond, they're still in large part going to be about Din Djarin trying to figure out what to do with this child. How does he feasibly train him to be a Mandalorian? And then along those same lines, how do the showrunners show us this? How do they show us Din, who again really can't communicate with Grogu, though they're pretty intelligent, I'm sure they'll figure out a system here. But how do they show us all this? How do they show us Din training Grogu in a way that isn't, I don't know, maybe a little silly or even a little cheesy considering how young and small Grogu is? And I can't imagine him suddenly growing up and developing overnight and suddenly talking and, being able to do all these things. I don't know, it's just something that's going to be, I think, very, very interesting to see going forward. Alright, and now let's move on to a few final comments before wrapping it up. Starting with this one from Samuel Webb, who said, he serves his purpose and is rather cute. However, I do feel that they milk his cuteness a little too much. I think he works as a highlight for Mando for his better aspects and his development, and that's what makes him a good character. Though I do wish that he wasn't seen again after the finale of Season 2, because just seeing him again undoes what was, in my opinion, the perfect ending. Now it just feels hollow. With all that in mind, I give him a reluctant B. We also then have this comment from Lone Battle Droid, who said, so far we haven't really gotten much on Grogu as a character until recently, when he chose to leave the Jedi and walk the way of the Mandalorian, but I don't really know his personality or motives outside of he wants to be with Mando. Which isn't bad, mind you, since he's still technically a child, but I hope going forward we see him develop into his own character. Then there's this comment from Elliot Stong, who said, at this point I would say a high C, low B. Yes, he's cute and well received across the board, but currently as a character, he is more the vehicle that drives Din's character arc than anything. Also then we have this one from Beezy's Beats, who said, I can't imagine a downside for creating this character. Grogu's obviously been great for Lucasfilm, but the fact that he's cute as F, only the third of his kind we've ever seen, and his story can go in many possible ways. Then also we have a comment here from LPS Bagel Sisters, who said, I know it's cliche to be one of those fans who just awes whenever he's on screen, but he's just so darn cute. His design is so adorable without being pink and fluffy. Also, we have this comment from Sith Lord Entertainment, who said, love him. He keeps the integrity of the mystery of Yoda's species, and he is such a breath of fresh air for this series. Makes you wonder, will he be the next Mandalorian Jedi? Probably not, as he would have played a role in the sequels. Love the dynamic between him and Din Djarin. Our next one then comes to us from Jonathan Ryan, who said, "He's adorable and probably the best call to action in years. But as he's just a toddler, he doesn't have much character on his own. He's just there to act like a kid, occasionally use the Force, and be a plot motivation for the adults." We also then have this comment from Asensio Bilalo III, who said, "I'm actually really shocked at the results here. Yes, he's adorable, yes, he's marketable, and he feels like he carries the legacy of Yoda, but as of now, he's felt like nothing but a cash cow and plot MacGuffin to me. In fact, I feel the show writers have missed a lot of interesting story beats to explore with him. His very little dabbling in the dark side when he force-choked Cara. In the past season of Boba Fett, I really wanted to see his decision to go back to Mando and the gravity of the choice of attachment for Jedi explored, and nothing. I find myself frustrated wanting to see so much more from the character and am left feeling more and more like he's just a toy. The oversaturation of his face everywhere in merchandising doesn't help. D." And finally here we have this comment from Natalie, who said, "He's a baby, so it's pretty hard to judge him compared to adult characters, but I really enjoy watching him. Not only is he adorable, he's fun to watch because of the elements of his personality that we can see. He's curious, an adrenaline junkie, and a glutton who will eat practically anything he can get his little hands on. He's genuinely made me laugh multiple times, which is a feat for a character who can't even talk yet." There's also a lot to explore with him going forward, whether he will continue his Jedi training or become a Mandalorian. Right now in the story, I totally understand why he would choose to return to Din when he is given the choice. He is a child who's been through a lot and had a lot of traumatic experiences with Jedi, so it's natural for him to want to return to where he feels safe and loved. His lifespan is also so long that there are so many places they can go with him moving forward. The best part about him is what he brings out in Din Djarin's character. He goes from being a lone wolf only interested in the next job to someone who would do anything to protect this child he has become a surrogate father to. It's a lovely story to watch and the heart of the Mandalorian, so it's hard to judge those characters separately, when for me at least, they are a package deal. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of Grogu, or what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about him here in this video. You can also feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we do next, and do keep an eye out for the Anakin/Vader poll that should be up later this coming week. Whatever the case may be, you know what to do. Leave a comment somewhere, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.